So today I'm going to be talking about drug addiction. Um, let's see, what do I have to say about that? Cocaine is a hell of a drug. My dad, it's not funny, but if anyone knows me, anybody that knows me and my family, you'll know that we've gotten through a lot of stuff by being silly and making light of the shit that's gone on in our lives. And my brothers and I have come to terms with a lot of this stuff. My parents, I don't know, they're on their own journeys, but I can speak for my brothers and I when I say that we crack jokes and stuff because it helps us to get, just helps us to live with this stuff that we experienced, and it's fine. But yeah, cocaine is a hell of a drug. It was my dad's drug of choice. At this point in time, I couldn't tell you what he's currently on. The last time I heard about it, he was hopped up on a bunch of medications. He was taking Suboxone for his heroin addiction. He did cocaine though. He was addicted to cocaine when we were younger. So that's what we experienced growing up. Him and his coke addiction. He was also an alcoholic before he started getting into cocaine. And he was able to stop that for some reason. And I've done so many different interviews with my dad all throughout my life because I was trying to get a better understanding of it. And then of course I wanted to be a therapist, so and understand psychology and understand all this stuff. So I was getting my master's in marriage and family therapy and addictions counseling. But drug addicts, that population is very difficult to work with because at the end of the day, they need to hit rock bottom. They need to pull themselves out of that shit. So you could have all the support in the world, but if you continuously take those drugs, use those drugs, that shit's in your body, it's not coming out, and it's just you need it. You need it to cope, you need it to survive, you need it to not feel sick. So with heroin, my dad was doing heroin later in life. The longest he was sober, from what I can recall, was probably a year. There may have been a 2-year, a mention of a 2-year sobriety stunt or whatever. But I don't know if that's true. I think maybe a year tops. And that was probably when he was in jail, one of the billions of times he was in and out of jail, that he was sober. So that was probably the longest he has ever been sober, a year tops. But I did a lot of interviews with him. I was trying to understand his background and stuff. And I remember doing a family tree in my master's program. One of my classes, I had to do a family tree, and then I asked more questions. So it was funny because there were times where he was open to speaking about this stuff, and there were a lot of times where he wasn't. But then I was able to piece all this shit together for him, and it's some stuff that I don't feel like he has come to those realizations himself because he's just so caught up in the goddamn drug addiction. And like I said, you keep putting that stuff into your body, into your system, your body craves it, and it's a hard cycle to break. So for the longest time, I blame my dad for the longest time. And of course, my mom would always, she would pit us against our father, my brothers and I. And so I was always like, Dad's the bad guy. He's the bad guy. He's the problem. He has this drug addiction. He's the goddamn problem. Da 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 da. But as I matured and got older, and then I was doing more and more research, I was just coming to see that, all right, maybe this is a disease. Some people label drug addiction as a disease. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. In my opinion, in my professional opinion, you're addicted to it, and it's because of the chemicals that are pumping through your body, and your body's craving that. It's just like with sugar and junk food. Your body, if you're eating clean for a while, and then you have a cheat meal or a treat meal, or you fall off the wagon, whatever, you get a taste of sugar in your mouth, you're gonna want more of that, and you get carbs in your system, bad carbs, you're gonna keep craving that. That's just the way it is. So I wouldn't necessarily, it was funny because I was like, oh, maybe my dad does have it. When I was in college, I was like, maybe my dad does have a disease. But so I considered it a disease for a portion of my life, a small portion of my life. And then I was like, nah, that's another excuse. We're still running from our issues. That's why you started doing drugs in the first place. That's why you are now addicted to it. And until you can stop that for yourself, you're always going to be addicted to that shit. And even after, you have to watch, because you could fall off the wagon. Anybody is susceptible to drug addiction. Doesn't matter who you are, rich, poor, black, white, gray, doesn't matter. Anybody can succumb to it. And my biggest concern is that children are succumbing to it. My biggest issue is with parents putting their children in that situation. And now I know that their parents, my dad's parents, were, the father was an absentee father, the biological father, absentee, drug, an alcoholic. The stepfather, another one, alcoholic. My mom's dad, an alcoholic. And the families didn't talk about this stuff back in the day. But again, I'll talk about it. It's a different world now. We need to speak about this stuff. So I have no problem talking about it. And anybody in my family, I love everybody, but we're not going to deny the fact that there was a cycle that was going on. And there's a reason for a lot of the shit that has gone on in our lives. And it is what it is. So I'm going to speak about it. That's just what I'm going to do. I'm not going to stop doing that. But anyway, so yeah, my mom's dad was an alcoholic. My father's parents, the father on the father's side, or his dad's side, stepdad, biological dad, alcoholics. God knows what else. I don't know. I wasn't there. All I kept hearing about was alcoholism. So that's a drug, people. Everybody. Yeah, I know it's legal. Da 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 da. It's one of the harshest drugs out there, and people are just fucking, you guys go out and party all the time, drink. I'm not saying don't have a good time. For me personally, this is why I don't drink. This is why I don't smoke pot. This is why I don't do these things. It's because I know the effects of it. I know that drug addiction runs in the family. I know it's a cycle, so I stayed away from it when I was younger. I'm not saying I didn't dabble in pot. I'm not saying I didn't dabble in drinking. I did. But I don't do that shit, and if I do it, it is once in a blue moon. And what I mean by that is it's once a year, once every 2 years, once every 3 years. I don't play around with that shit for obvious reasons. And it's because my dad is a drug addict, and I saw what it did to our family. I saw what it did to my brothers, and I wanted, from a very young age, I made a promise to myself. I said I would not deal with that shit ever, in my relationships or personally. I'm not touching that shit, especially the super hard stuff. But people, alcohol is a very hard drug, so even though it's legal, please be more mindful of that. And personally, just from a personal standpoint, I would rather you guys smoke pot, to be quite honest with you. They're starting to legalize that now, which is great. Again, I don't really care to deal with it. I don't like how drugs in general make me feel. I don't take medication. I don't do anything. Like, I never did. Even Advil, Tylenol, all that stuff never worked for me. So I stayed away from it, because with even knowing that this stuff didn't work for me, and knowing that I probably have a high tolerance, I do have a high tolerance for stuff, so that just meant that I would have to keep taking this stuff in order to get some kind of relief, and I just wasn't going to mess around with that, knowing what I knew. So I'm happy that I have that discipline, that self-control. But yeah, and I stayed away from my friends who partied and loved them dearly, but they had their own issues with that, and they're coming to those realizations themselves, and it's a hard conversation to have with your loved ones. I've had a few of them. I helped my one brother in and out of rehab a couple of times, and then at one point I was just like, you know what? I saw my mom enabling my dad all the goddamn time. Here's some money, Bob. Go out, just so she could get away from him and the bullshit. But you can't enable. That's another thing. Parents, it's so hard with kids. You know, I have a kid of my own now, so I don't know what's going to happen with her. I've mentioned this in videos before. I have no idea what's going to happen in her life. I don't know what she's going to be feeling, and, you know, she's going to hit puberty, and she's going to be dealing with people that are her friends, are going to be trying the cigarettes and the pot and the alcohol, doing all that dumb shit, that you do when you're a kid. And I don't know how this situation with her father and us splitting up is affecting her. She talks about it all the time now, so And she wants us together. She says it all the fucking time, and that's okay. It's natural for a child to want their parents together. I understand that, so I try to talk her through it. I try to walk her through it. And there are a lot of things that I say to her, you know, you don't understand. You're not gonna be able to understand at this point, so there's no point in talking to you about it. I just want you to love your dad the way you want to love your dad. That's fine. I don't want to get into the middle of your relationship. Like, I say stuff like this all the time. I speak just like this. I think it's important to not sugarcoat shit. Do it in a way that your kids can understand you. She's only 5, so she's not going to understand a lot of it, but I keep telling her, I'll tell you when you're older. I'll explain more when you're older, because right now you just don't understand. But I don't know what's going to happen to her. I don't know how this is going to affect her going forward, and I just try to guide her, but who's to say she's not going to get hooked up on fucking drugs? Anybody can. It doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter. I wasn't a drug addict. I come from a fucking long line of drug addicts. And, you know, all my brothers did this shit too. I didn't fucking touch the shit. I didn't do the shit. I never had an addiction problem. So it's like, but it was around me all the time. That was something that we dealt with every fucking day in our childhood. And not even childhood. I'm not talking from toddler to fucking 10 years old. I'm talking about our entire lives. We have been dealing with it. We still deal with it. So I'll just go over some stories that I remember, but even more recently. So again, I don't know what my dad taught. I'm gonna be all over the place per usual, because this was a big topic for me. It's something that I studied a lot, I researched a lot, I experienced a lot of it through my father, the after effects of it, dealing with it with my brothers, dealing with it with some of my best friends, or them not dealing with it, stuff like that. And so I'm very familiar with this stuff. The effects on the body, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what the shit's gonna do to your body. There's some drugs where it's just like heroin. You're fucking automatically hooked on that shit. Meth, you're automatically hooked on that shit. Don't touch that shit. Shrooms, I'm more of a natural, like I like natural stuff. Maybe it's from the earth, but I think that causes hallucinations and all that stuff. So I wouldn't mess around with shrooms. Don't mess with anything. Fucking that love drug, what's it called? Ecstasy. You know, I won't say that, but I know somebody who did that, and that may have caused some issues for themselves just mentally. But this shit, it's chemicals, it's poisonous to your body, to your system. So just say, I'm gonna try this thing, Molly, I'm gonna try shit one time. Don't do it one time. That's the worst idea in your entire life. Don't try the drugs just for the sake of trying it. God, don't do that, because this stuff is highly addictive, and once it's in your system, it's hard to stop using the drugs. So don't be playing around. Don't play around with fucking coke. Oh, somebody has coke at a party, I'll be alright. I'm just gonna do a line of coke. You are stupid if you do that. Don't fucking do it. Use your goddamn head. Just like common fucking sense, people. Let's go. But yeah, even alcohol too. Be smart. So people build up a tolerance for alcohol, but then they just keep drinking more, and they keep drinking, and they don't stop drinking. They keep drinking, and they're out every fucking night. And then it's, they're out every weekend, and they're out every night. I know people that drink every fucking day. They drink in the middle of their lunch breaks, and then they go home and drink at night. Some people start off with a goddamn beer in the morning. People do that shit all the time. They think it's normal. I don't have a problem. You're drinking alone. You have a fucking problem if you're drinking alone, okay? I hate to break it to you, but you do. I'm just gonna enjoy this one drink. Everything in moderation, people. I say don't do it at all, but that's just me, and it is what it is. People are gonna do what they're gonna do, but I'm just putting out information out there just to let you know. Alcohol is a drug. It's highly addictive. Marijuana is a drug. I like to think it is a gateway drug, especially for the younger kids, because that's who I'm really trying to, I'm trying to hit all populations, whatever. It doesn't matter, but I'm more concerned with kids, because adults after a certain stage, I'm not saying everyone's on their own journeys, whatever. I'm not saying you can't get better. You absolutely can, but a lot of times people after a certain point, they just fucking, they give up and they don't want to grow, and they stay the same. So I rather put this out there for kids, young kids, teenagers, even kids in their early 20s and stuff. Drug friends are not your friends. So you'll hear me say a bunch of shit like that. But it's true. I mean, your buddies have pot, great. You don't know where they're getting that shit from. You don't know if it's laced with stuff. You have to just make these decisions for yourself. You have to be mindful of that, especially if you're just starting out with pot and stuff. You don't know where you're getting it from. You've gotta be aware of that. And okay, they're offering you pot one day, they're offering you alcohol, underage drinking, all that stuff. Be smart about that. There are consequences for your actions. Be smart. But yeah, you don't know if that stuff's laced. And then what if they offer you Molly one day? You gonna take it? Peer pressure is a real thing, and I was never the person that I am. Nobody could ever make me do anything that I didn't want to do. So I wasn't that type of person. I try to lead by example too with my family, my brothers, and my friends. I always been like that. I've done it to the best of my ability, and when I was down and stuff, I isolated. So it's not like I wasn't preaching to anybody at all. That's just the type of person I am. Like, who was I to say anything when I knew I wasn't fucking in the right headspace at the time? But it doesn't matter. So anyway, but you have to be mindful of that stuff. You don't know what they're putting in these drugs, and marijuana, you do get high. And if you're running from shit, and like a lot of people you don't realize, you see stuff starts to hit you in your early 20s or mid 20s and stuff like that. You start to put shit together, like especially if you come from dysfunctional family dynamics and stuff. You start to put shit together, or you start to realize stuff, and then it's like it gets too scary, or if you're feeling insecure about yourself and you just start running from this shit, but people end up running to drugs and to escape it. So it's a form of escapism, and so people partying all the time, they're doing their 9-to-5s, they're fucking miserable, they're miserable in their marriages, whatever, relationships. They're just leading miserable lives because they're not doing what they want to do. So they end up going out and partying all the time, and then they try to escape that way, and it just causes more problems for yourself. So not everyone does that. Some people do have self-control. Some people can just drink once in a while and it's not a big deal. But I know a lot of people that drink every fucking day, every day, and it's they don't think they have a problem, and that's scary because it only gets worse. But so just going back off talking about some stuff that we experienced, not just me, some of the stuff and I was older and I was always more mature. I'm also a woman. Women naturally are just more mature, so I was more mature than my brothers and stuff, even though we're all super close in age. So I was picking up on a lot of this stuff, more so than the boys at that time, but I would see all this stuff, like I just realized like my mom was enabling my dad's drug addiction, and those two together, it was just a bad combination. She was just as bad as him when it came to that stuff because she was enabling it, and then she enabled my brothers for a while, and I don't want to get too into it with my brothers. My brothers are sober, which I'm so proud of them for that. So they got themselves out of that shit. Nobody did it for them. People tried to help them over the years, but they ultimately had to come out of it themselves, and they fucking did. So I hope they keep on keeping on with their sobriety, and don't ever go back to that shit. But so those are their stories. I'm gonna leave that alone. But I tried helping the one, and I did it a couple of times, but then I was like, all right, you're on your fucking own, buddy. There's nothing I can do. I can't help you. So I could have had him stay with me. I didn't let that happen. I tried helping him out with rehab, and then he got somebody else to get him out of it. And then I know the one time when I went to see him, I made the mistake because he was detoxing. I made the mistake of going to one of the family visits too early on. I think it was only like 3 or 4 days after he was admitted into rehab, but and then I went to go see him, and I shouldn't have done that. I was just trying to check up on him because he was in a different area. He didn't know the area, and I was there, so I just wanted to make sure he's all right. But then I remember we were talking to each other about it, and he was just coming off of fucking whatever he was on at the time, and I was getting upset. He was getting triggered a lot when I was talking about this stuff, and it was just way too early. Oh, that's another thing. So way too early to talk about it. So I know I made the mistake in doing that, but then after that, that was it. He had somebody check him out, and that was it. But then he was in and out of rehab. The one was in and out of rehab a lot of times. I think 19 times to be exact. Again, he'd have to speak about that. That's his story. He's comfortable talking about that, but I don't want to speak on his behalf. I just know some of the stuff that went on with him and what I experienced with him myself. But again, with these, not again, but these rehabs. So drug addiction is a big deal. A lot of people suffer from it. A lot of people are succumbing to it. And again, it could happen to anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. So don't think you're above it, because you're not. So be smart and stay away from this stuff. If you are staying away from it, congratulations to you. You know how to be sober. But the boys would get mad at me about that. They're like, you don't know how to be sober. You don't. I was like, yes, I fucking do. I never touched a shit in the first place. But then at that time, I felt like, looking back on it now, I was just passing judgment. And, the boys saw what I saw too, and they went down a different path. And, when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, that's when my dad came out about Steve, my brother Steve, dying in the car accident. He's like, Raquel, he was racing down the mountain to meet me to get heroin. I had just gotten a new supply of heroin, and then he was racing down the mountain. So my dad felt guilty about that. It's like, man, he hit a whole new fucking low doing drugs with with his kids. Now, I don't know if he did it with the other two. I didn't ask the other two. Doesn't matter at this point. But I always told the boys, stay away from fucking dad, especially because you're doing the fucking drugs. They're gonna end up doing it with each other, and they were doing it, and I don't know if the other two did. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They may have, but Steve was doing it, and with our dad, I'm just like, I look at our dad, I'm just like, you know what, man, you're fucking responsible for this shit. Like, I cannot believe you would sink that low. But again, drug friends are not your friends. They're in a totally different fucking realm with that stuff. So just stay away don't get involved in it at all. Don't even fuck with alcohol. Don't fuck with pot. There's no reason to do that. Learn how to have a good fucking time without it. Get high off of fucking life. Be happy. Be joyful. That's where you're gonna get that inner peace, that calmness from, by thinking positively and just doing positive shit in your life, and just figuring out how to be still with yourself. Instead of escaping your shit, fucking sit with it. The shit goes away. It does. It absolutely does. So just stop turning to fucking drugs. Get a hobby. Go do something. There's no reason for you guys to be doing that stuff. But again, I don't want to pass judgment. The alcohol's there. It's legal. Cigarettes are out there. That's legal. Marijuana's now becoming legalized. And it's just because the government says it's okay doesn't mean it is. It's just like with people eating junk food and fucking sugar. That shit's fucking poison. So again, it's gonna be fucking up your system. It's gonna mess with your natural rhythm in your body. It's gonna fuck with your hormones, and those are chemicals. It's poison that's pumping in your body when you're taking that in, and you just have to be mindful of that. So even though the government says it's okay, or they're advertising it like it's okay, it's really not. So just pay attention, think for yourself, be smart. You know that you have the answers within you. You know you shouldn't be doing this shit. So, but do what you're gonna do. But anyway, back to my whole family situation. So yeah, drugs. It was a every fucking day thing in our lives, and my mom would be, oh my god, there's so many fucking stories. I don't even know how to break this down, to be quite honest with you, because it just became normal in our family, and it's not normal at all. But even like the latest stuff, the last time I heard about my dad, now he had overdosed on heroin right before COVID hit. I'd have to look back. I remember talking to somebody about this while it was happening. My mom called me up. I was at work. It may have been right before COVID or right after. No, it was right before because we weren't going out at that time. I remember. Right before COVID hit, so maybe Marchish. And what the hell? So she calls me. She's like, "Your dad overdosed." I'm like, this is me. This is my reaction. Like, she's calling, emailing. I call her back. I'm like, "Mom, I'm at fucking work. I don't have time to deal with this shit." Like, that's my reaction to it, because this is a normal thing in our family. Like, it's just so fucking mental. But your dad overdosed. I don't know if he's gonna make it. I don't know if he's gonna make it. He was out in the garage with his buddy. Always out with his fucking buddy. Yeah, you're not fucking friends. I just want you to know that. But anyway, anyone that's doing drugs with you are not your fucking friends. Yeah, he overdosed. I don't know what to do. The ambulance is here. I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. So I texted my brothers because I was at work. I was like, Mom's concerned. This was my attitude the whole fucking time. I'm like, this is me. I'm like, Dad, first of all, Dad's a fucking cockroach. This motherfucker has survived so many fucking things. He has more than 9 lives. I don't know how the fuck he's still alive. And maybe he'll go out soon. I don't know. It's not like I want him to. But again, he has not overcome this fucking addiction. He'll probably take that with him to the grave. You could always hope for people, but it's been going on his entire life. So I don't know how he's still fucking alive though, man. I really don't fucking know. I don't know if he's alive just to see the wreckage that was caused by him, or if he's alive because I don't understand it. Again, he's on his own journey, but if he doesn't overcome this now in this life, he will be coming back and dealing with it again. So until he fucking does. But yeah, my mom's like, "Oh, your dad overdosed. I don't know what to do. I think he's dying. I think he's gonna die." I'm just like, how many times have I heard that in my life? Mom, I'm at work and I don't have time to deal with this. I'll talk to you later about it. And I hung up, and then I texted the boys and I was just like, Dad, Mom said he's not breathing, call Mom, make sure she's okay. I'm at work, I can't deal with this. And so then all throughout the day, like, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, Dad's gonna be fine. This motherfucker always comes back. It's not funny, but it's true. I mean, it's just like, I can't believe it. Like, I know some people are probably like, this shit, like, how do you think, how is this normal? It's not normal. It's not normal, people. But this is what I had to live through. My brothers and I had to live through this shit every fucking day, and it's still there. But anyway, so I got news all throughout the day, and then I wasn't really concerned about it, because, like, again, my dad's a fucking cockroach. Apparently, so the ambulance came, he was hit with a Narcan like 3 times. That's just, what is it, the adrenaline, they pump it in your heart. They do that with a lot of heroin overdoses. I knew somebody that they couldn't revive him with that. It was already too late. But a lot of times they hit you with that fucking Narcan, you come right back to life. But it wasn't working, so he got hit with it 3 times. It wasn't working, so they took him to the hospital. And then, my mom calls again. She's just like, I was like, "Where's Dad?" She's like, "Oh, he's at the hospital." And then he just shows up. Like, he walked home from the hospital after all of that. And I'm just like, you guys are fucking, like, I don't know how you have managed to live your lives like this. But he was back doing it again. So it's just like, that was the latest story, and that wasn't that long ago. But my dad has overdosed a few times. I actually witnessed it too a couple of times. I remember it was maybe around New Year's, one of the years. I was probably, I'm trying to think back of like the times in the different apartments and houses that we had. I'd have to sit and map it all out, but I'm just going off of what I remember. I know I wasn't in high school yet, so I was probably like 10-ish, maybe. Maybe 12, I don't know. I was approaching high school, but maybe 10 to 12, somewhere in there. That's how old I was. But my dad fucking, I don't know if he was on Coke at the time and alcohol. It could have been both. But I remember my mom having, she bought 2 pounds of shrimp. I just always remember 2 pounds of shrimp, 2 pounds of shrimp. And they got into a fight. They fought all the fucking time, but they got into a fight, and I don't know what happened. He was laid the fuck out on the floor. From whatever he took, he was out. And the boys, I don't know if the boys were home at that time or they may have been upstairs, but I remember coming down. I remember coming down the steps. We were in the house. I remember being at the house. We lived by this lake when this happened. And he was laid out on the floor in the kitchen, and there was shrimp. So I don't know if he fucking fell or she threw it on him. She may have thrown it on him. Nobody hit anybody. He passed the fuck out from something, and he wasn't waking up. It was probably coke, because he was still doing coke at the time. But my dad would do anything he could get his fucking hands on. He did coke back then because we had more money back then. He had his own business and stuff, so he was able to make money doing his own shit. He made money. He was a hard worker and stuff, but he was working for those fucking drugs more than anything. And so as time went on, he started turning to heroin because it was cheaper to get his hands on. And you know, he would sell shit. He would steal shit. He would sell that fucking copper shit. Go to the junkyards, take that. I don't know if he got in trouble for guns the one time, so I don't know if he was selling guns or whatnot. I know he went to jail for that. He was in and out of jail all throughout our life, and more so in the later years. So as we were getting older, because it was all catching up to him. But anyway, so he's on the floor. And I come down, he's on the floor, on all the shrimps around him. Now, I don't know, I know she was yelling. I'm like, fuck you, Bob, get up, Bob, shit like that. She would say shit like that. I'm sure she could probably tell you the story. I don't know. She probably threw the shrimp on him. But anyway, there were shrimp everywhere. All over my dad, all over the floor, all over the counters. And my mom yelling. My mom goes, I come down the steps and go to see that. I'm freaking out. I'm fucking 10, 11, 12 years old at the time. I'm like, Mom, Dad's not waking up. Mom, do something. She goes and sits down on the fucking couch. She's like, I'll deal with him later. And I was freaking the fuck out. I was like, I need to call somebody. What do we do? And then we eventually get him in the fucking car and take him to the hospital. But I think that's what we ended up doing. I don't think we called the ambulance at the time. We took them ourselves. But like, this is the shit that I had to deal with. I saw all this shit growing up. There were a couple of times where my dad said he wanted to commit suicide. He would say it to me directly. And you know, that was hard to you know, I'm a kid. So it was hard to think. How do you process that as a fucking kid? So I had to grow up fast, so I'm very wise. I had to grow up very quickly, starting at a very young age, on top of all the other shit that I was dealing with. So this drug addiction, again, it was an everyday part of our lives, lots of crazy stories. That fucking shrimp, I'll never forget that shit. I'll never forget the shrimp stuff. I'll never forget, you know, my dad had motorcycles at the time. I'll never forget some of the shit we had to do where, oh my God, we had to go do a stakeout. We went to a bar. There's this bar. We had to do a stakeout the one time. My brother, my mother, and the four of us. Just the dumb fucking shit. I can't even think. It's crazy. There's just so much stuff, but like, even me thinking about it now and then telling people about this shit, I know I'm not the only one. I know people have gone through worse shit, or people, all I have to say is, people out there who lost their parents to drugs and alcohol, it's better that they left. It's better that you weren't around it. I don't want to say it was more damaging for me. The effects are all the same, where you feel rejected, abandoned, you don't feel worthy or loved by your parents. But I'm going to tell you something. You did not miss out by not having those fucking parents around when they were in that state. It's a fucking nightmare. So don't think you were missing out. I didn't have a mom. I didn't have a dad. I want to tell you something right now. My parents were not emotionally there. They may have physically been there. My dad was definitely not even physically. He wasn't there. My mom was physically there. Neither one of them were emotionally available to any of us. Neither one of them were mentally stable. You didn't miss anything. So my parents are still together too. And again, like I've mentioned before, they're still doing the same dumb shit they were doing back then. You know, my mom talked about leaving my dad a billion fucking times. She never did. And if she did, when she did, she always let him back in. And I'm not blaming my dad. I'm not blaming my mom. I'm blaming the both of them. They're both responsible for that fucking dynamic. And this is the result of you not taking responsibility for your life. You running from your problems, you blaming other people in your life, blaming your own family, and I don't want that in my house. So I won't be doing it. My daughter will not be doing it. Anybody that we are associated with, and the person that I end up marrying will not be doing that. We will not conduct ourselves like that. So as I'm talking to you guys, I'm just thinking about all the shit that I witnessed growing up. So I think I'm just, so if you see me pausing and stuff, I'm just like, Jesus fucking Christ. And it was a big secret too. So my dad's drug addiction was a huge secret. I remember my mom telling me, I'm sorry if I'm all over the place. It's just a lot. That's why it has taken me so long to do this particular video. Even though I've researched it and I've talked about it so many times, I wrote so many papers about it. I still have some of the papers saved. But my mind just hones in onto the main takeaway here is with the drug addiction. You, instead of facing your demons head on and sitting with those fucking emotions and taking responsibility for your life and understanding cycles and understanding dysfunctionality and understanding energy, instead of researching all that, doing all that stuff for yourself and being still with yourself and coming to terms with all that stuff, and not taking the blame for what other people have done to you, and not feeling loved and feeling neglected and abandoned and all that stuff when you're younger, instead of taking a look at all that stuff, people they blame other people, or they run from it, they can't deal with it, and they turn to drugs. But you have caused a whole other set of issues for yourself when you've done that. And when you don't take responsibility, you don't take accountability, you don't sit with those fears, you don't face your fears. So you just keep running. So my dad, Bobby G, we call him Bobby G, has been running since he was a kid, and he had a fucked up background. So I understand, but again, I did too. You know, I used to tell my parents this all the time. You guys have fucked up background. Guess what? You did that to us. The cycle continued with us. We're breaking it. My brothers and I are breaking that shit. We broke it. We broke this cycle. My brother Matt's out in LA doing his thing, doing whatever he wants to do out there. He's living the high life. No pun intended there. And my brother Keith is happily married. They're sober. They're sober. And I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So we're good. We broke the fucking cycle. We broke the chain. We broke the cycle. But you know, my parents didn't, and they didn't, and they still have time left to get their shit together, and I hope that they do. And hopefully them seeing their kids, a lot of times, I don't know, I can't speak for them, but I just know that they're still doing the same shit they were doing back then, and it's hard to be around them because of that, because that energy is still there, and they're still running from their shit. And again, everyone's on their own journeys, but you have to take responsibility for yourself. So it's hard, because if we're all together in the same room, one of us gets triggered at some point. I used to a lot. I think I got the brunt of everything. I got most of it. I got most of the shit, especially when it came to the abuse part. And me just being more aware of this stuff and being more mature at that time. So I knew a lot more about this stuff, but I was more aware of the stuff that was going on. Again, I try to lead by example for my brothers, but they were around it all the time too. And then my mom would always push the boys, so she would pit us against him, but then she was like, I can't leave your father because the boys, because of the boys need their dad. Like, they don't need dad like this. They certainly don't. And I think she understands that now. But then it's like, all right, Mom. So then you come to a point, you keep trying to point this stuff out for them. I'm not judging them. Again, they both had rough upbringings themselves. I don't know as much as what went on in my mom's life, I just know in my dad's background how he was tossed out of the house once the stepfather came in and brought in his set of kids. Him, my father, and his siblings were kicked out. Most of the boys were kicked out, or a couple of them were kicked out of the house at 12 years old. So he was homeless. They started doing drugs very young, at 12. And it just continued on. So I understand why my dad did what he did. I understand it. But, you know, again, you gotta give yourself that love, that self-love. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Everybody has to find that for themselves. So you don't get in anybody else. And I'm sorry if you had a poor upbringing. I'm sorry if you felt like your parents didn't love you. They didn't love themselves, okay? Understand that. Please understand that. They didn't love themselves, so they weren't going to be able to show you the proper way to love yourself. It's my mission in life to do that for my own daughter, and I think about stuff that has gone on, and there are times where she's making messes and stuff. Like, we're just talking about it again this morning, about her making a mess, and I'm yelling at her to clean up the damn mess. Why do you keep making them a mess? She's like, I'm not going to talk to you if you keep yelling at me. I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. I need to stop fucking yelling at you. It's like, okay, Shane, can you please clean up the mess? So that I calm down and say it like that. But it's just like stuff like this. I think about it all the fucking time. And it's hard. It's not easy, but because you're not going to get it right all the time. Nobody's perfect. But I think about that stuff. But it is my mission in life to make sure that my daughter knows how to love herself. And I know she's going to go through her own stuff, and she still isn't 100% sure, grasping the concept of, she knows she has to love herself, but even getting validation from me all the time, something that she does. And I may be doing it too much where I'm like, you don't need validation from me. You don't need it from me. Because I am proud of her, of course. She's a great kid. And even if she wasn't, it wouldn't matter. She's my kid, so I will always love her. But yeah, I think about that stuff. I'm just like, oh my God. It's a lot. It's a lot because I didn't have these tools. I had to learn this myself on my own. Nobody taught me this shit. I didn't go to school for this shit. I learned all this stuff on my own by doing my own research and coming up with these answers within me. Nobody taught me this shit. I wasn't trained in this stuff at all. I was barely halfway done with my master's program, and I actually didn't go to school for marriage and family therapy or psychology or any of that. I actually majored in sociology and political science, which is why I fucking don't fuck with the government. Like, at all. People, stop listening to the government. I want to put that out there too. Stop listening to these fucking heathens. Please stop doing it. Do it for yourself. Do it for your kids. Stop following everybody else. Follow yourself. Please, 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 please. We're getting off track, but Jesus Christ, like, wake the fuck up. Stop being sheep. Thank you. Please do that for yourself and your family. You should want better for yourself. You should want better for your kids. You need to stop listening to other fucking people. Listen to yourself. But anyway, I don't know where the fuck I'm going with this shit. This shit just pisses me off. Like, Jesus fuck up. Wake the fuck up, people. Please wake the fuck up. Please wake the fuck up. It's just the insanity that goes on in people's lives and the craziness. And I think about just people just doing dumb shit and caring about stupid fucking shit, petty fucking shit, all that stuff. Like, it's just so stupid to me, just because I know what I went through in my fucking life. I know what I experienced, and it's just like, that's real shit. Go fucking deal with that instead of listening to dumb shit. Stop watching fucking TV. Stop eating fucking bullshit. Stop doing fucking drugs. Yes, alcohol's a drug. Yes, marijuana's a drug. Those are all fucking drugs. Whether you guys want to admit that to yourselves or not, they're fucking drugs. Don't do it. Even once in a while. So even me, like, I know I drank with my friend when she opened up her business back in early May. I haven't had a drink since then. I don't drink. I just don't do it. I was only celebrating because of her, and I didn't do anything, like, probably for a year before I did that too. So I don't condone it at all. Do what you want to do, but just Please be mindful of this shit. But anyway, I got off track. I know I was talking about Shane. Oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen with her. She might get into it herself. She might end up experiencing this stuff herself, and I hope to God she doesn't. Like, we talk about my tattoos and stuff, and she's like, I always laugh at. I always say this. I was like, I'm gonna look real dumb, you know, when I have when I'm holding your babies. I'm a grandma. I have these tattoos all over the place, but I'll probably end up getting more. But just like, I tell her now, I don't want to sway her any which way. She's going to make her own decisions for herself. But talking about tattoos and stuff, like, I'll probably end up getting more. I'm sure I will. I already have them. I'm not getting them lasered off. So, but I tell her if she wants to have them, she ends up getting them herself, to be mindful of what you put on your body. And she's always says, I'm never gonna touch it. And the same with cigarettes and alcohol. That's, I'm not touching that. I'm never. It's so gross. It's so gross. I was like, it is gross. Like, there's no way around it. Smoking is disgusting. It's bad for your health. Doesn't matter if it's legal or not. That's the thing with the government. They're legalizing poison, so they can keep you guys asleep, and you need to wake the fuck up. You know there's a bigger reason why you're here. Wake the fuck up to it. Come to those conclusions on your own. Please, do it for the betterment of you, because you're gonna have to at some point anyway. So you may as well get on that now. But yeah, I don't know if she's gonna, if she's gonna end up, I don't know how she's gonna respond to the stuff that goes on in her own life, and God forbid she gets hooked up on drugs. But parents out there, what I want to say about this is, as hard as it may be, and if you don't know that they're doing the drugs at the time, you have to know. You have to know something's off with your kid. So I just want to put that out there. You have to know something's off. I would monitor the alcohol intake. I would monitor the marijuana stuff. Make sure they're, you know, pay attention to if they're smoking or not. Kids are gonna dabble in it. It's just the way it goes. It's the way it is. But how do I want to say this? If they are hooked up on drugs, first and foremost, make sure you're not doing it yourself. Make sure you're aware of what you are putting your kids in front of. So if you do have a drinking problem, or if you're constantly drinking, you're drinking all the time around your kids, pay attention to that. I know you're not hearing me now because you're doing it now, so it's probably not making any fucking sense to you. But if you're not mindful of that, the kids are, and they're gonna end up a lot more often than not. They're gonna end up doing it too, because you do it. So you have to set the example. You have to do that. You have to do that for your kids. So that's first and foremost. If you're subjecting them to drug addiction, drug use, that includes alcohol. People, once again, alcohol is a drug. If you're subjecting them to that on a consistent basis, chances are they're gonna get hooked up on it too. And then the harder stuff too, all this shit, alcohol, marijuana, gateway drugs, and it leads to other things. I mean, you don't know what's gonna happen, but the point I'm trying to make is, even if they're pretty bad, if they're hopped up on other stuff, not pot, but alcohol or heroin or any type of fucking pill, Xanax, Oxy, anything like that, and you're aware of it, you're finally aware of it, please, you can't enable them. As hard as it's going to be for you, it's going to be the opposite of what you want to do. You can't enable them. You have to. They're going to hit rock bottom. All you can do is stand firm in how you feel about it and what you're going to do and not do for them. They have to hit rock bottom if they're that far gone. If they're deep into the addiction, they have to do it on their own. And there's nothing you can fucking do about it. And it's scary, but that's just the way it is. And especially when it comes to drug addiction, if they don't hit rock bottom, they might have to hit it a few fucking times too. If they don't hit that, they don't come to those realizations on their own, there's nothing There's no amount of love, no amount of money, nothing. Nothing's gonna get them to stop using those drugs once they're hooked on it. And unless they can, it's only them, only they can do it, unless they can get themselves out of it. They're the only person that's going to be able to do that for themselves. And, you know, they have these, so back to the rehab part, insurance, another dumbass fucking thing in this fucking world that does nothing for anybody. So normally there's like a 28-day stay in some of these rehabs, and insurance will help cover that. 28 days is not enough time to face your fucking demons, especially if you've been deep in it and you've been running from it the whole fucking time. So people are thinking, okay, detoxing's great. Detox, heroin, every drug's different. Heroin, you could get off of it, I don't know, 3 days maybe. They always talk about a 3-day detox, and then but people are right back out doing the same shit anyway, because 3 days isn't enough time to fucking detox from fucking that shit. Those drugs stay in your fucking body. Those drugs stay in your body. So you can be, say you're a recovering alcoholic, that shit is still in your system from fucking decades ago. Especially if you didn't clean your system out and you're not eating clean and doing all that stuff will stay in there. So you've got to figure out really how to clear your energy and clean out that shit from your body. And a lot of times the only way to get that out is through fasting. And I'm not going to get into that. I'm not a licensed medical doctor. I just speak from what I have done myself. And I know what works, what doesn't work, but fasting seems to be the way to get all that shit out of your body. But a lot of people don't have the discipline to do it. But it works. And that really is the only way to get it out. But anyway, I'll talk about fasting another time. But parents out there, as hard as it's going to be, and I already know, my daughter is not at that age yet. I hope to God she never, ever, I don't think she will. All parents want to think that way. All parents should think that way, but you know, shit happens. And if she ever comes up against something like that, I know that I can't enable her behavior. I know I can't do that, which is why I'm like so on top of her about shit now. But again, you don't know how people are going to process stuff. You don't know what's going to happen. But I know that I won't be able to enable her. I can't do it. That's not going to help. That's only going to make it worse if you enable your kids. If you let them stay with you, if you're giving them money, if you're checking them in and out of rehab. I mean, you've got to realize they've got to want it for themselves. They have to want to do it for themselves. But your job as a parent is to continuously guide them all throughout their life. Set the example. Don't be doing this shit in front of your kids in the first place. That includes drinking alcohol. And making them aware of it. Just awareness in general. Speaking about it. You can speak about it, but you could talk to somebody all fucking day long. But if they can't come to those realizations on their own, and they have to go through the experience themselves, and it is what it is. You can't force anyone to do anything, especially with people that are addicted to drugs. And when they're trying to sober up and get clean, it is a process. It's a process. So those 28-day stays or those 3-day detoxes, all that shit, it's not enough. It's not enough time. Insurance companies don't help. Rehabs really don't. AA meetings are great. NA meetings are great. I would say you should be helping yourself out in that sense, because you could fall off. This stuff's everywhere. It's on TV. It's on your phone. It's people are around it. There are people that are sober, but their family members drink, and they have to deal with that. People are always partying. They're always out trying to party and stuff like that. So it's just constantly around people. And the people that are sober and recovering addicts and everything, they have to be mindful of all that stuff, and they have to have a system in place for themselves to make sure that they don't fall off the wagon, because you can at any time, and then you're right back into it. And it's scary. It is. It's one fucking bad decision. You're one decision away. You're one drink away. You're one I don't know, fucking with marijuana, I guess. I don't even want to talk about marijuana right now. I'll talk about that at another time. But like one pill away from falling off the fucking wagon. Even people that you say you get hurt, you have surgery and all that stuff, and you're a recovering addict, you can't touch the drugs to help alleviate the pain. You can't touch that stuff. Because once it's in your system, fucking your brain goes off and it's like, oh, I remember doing this. Let's go get high. That's what happens. You really have to be strong-willed, and you have to have a good system in place to stop yourself from doing that if you were to just have a drink. But anybody will tell you, any drug counselor, any recovering addict will tell you, you can't touch anything. That includes marijuana. You can't touch anything if you're recovering from the harder shit ever again, because there's just no way of knowing if it might be your last time, and you don't know, you're gonna end up falling off the fucking wagon. It's just the way it is. Like I said, it's the same with sugar. Once you fall off the wagon, it's hard to get back on there. Don't do it. Eat clean, stay clean. You don't have to have, if you want to have a treat meal, eat fucking fruit. Fruit has a ton of sugar in it. That's what it's there for. The fruit's there for a reason. That's your dessert. But yeah, so parents out there with their kids going through, dealing with this now, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy on you, but you have to, we just have to pray about it, and you have to stay positive, and you have to hope that your kids come around, because you can't, after a certain point, you can't do anything for them. Like I said, no amount of love, money, anything is gonna help them. They have to want to help themselves, and they will get triggered a lot. So leave them alone if they are in recovery. If they are in rehab, don't visit until like the very end and all that stuff, because they're going to be detoxing. They're going to be triggered a lot. Even trying to get them into rehab is a fucking headache, because they're going to be in denial. And if they're not ready to stop doing what they're doing, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing, and it's just going to further agitate them, aggravate them, and push them to go get fucking high. So it's hard to say, you know, let them, it's hard to hear that too, let them do what they need to do, but you have to. And I know it's hard to hear that, but that's just the way it is. They have to want to get clean. They have to want to do better, and only they can make that decision for themselves. So you can love them and all that stuff, but enabling is not loving them the right way, especially when it comes to drug addiction. Don't enable them. And anybody else that's been dealing with it for a long time, like in your own family, with your husband being like that, and or your wife, or parents, family members, everyone's gonna make their own decisions at the end of the day. It's hard to say. So for me personally, I keep my distance, because I have to. One, I don't want my daughter around that. I don't want to be around it, and I never wanted my brothers around it. So I would say, to the boys, stay away from dad, stay away from dad, stay away from dad, especially if you're trying to recover. Stay the fuck away from him. Stay away from mom too, because she's only going to drag you down with this shit too. She's going to enable you. So I would say stuff like that, but again, it doesn't make a difference. So you could plant seeds in people's heads, and hope for the best, but it is what it is. They're on their own path, and it's just the way it is. But some other stories that some other stories. So yeah, the shrimp thing, I'll never forget. And my dad talking about wanting to commit suicide. That, and the stakeout. So the stakeout. We did this a couple times, but the one time, the stakeout, we had to go. My dad had a bike at the time, a motorcycle, Harley, and my mom wanted to go track him down, go see where he was. She knew where he was. already, which is why we were going, but we took 2 separate cars. I ended up driving. I was 14. I drove the one car, and I had my one brother in the passenger seat, and then my mom had the other 2 boys, and we went, and I followed her. I didn't know how to drive at the time, but I learned how to drive there. I learned how to drive, so this is just the crazy shit that went on in my life on a consistent basis. But yeah, we found him, and then we went back home. Then I drove my brother home, and I did well, thankfully. But before that point, I never drove a day in my life. Just the nuttiness that went on. What else? I know I mentioned in one of my other videos about my dad being stabbed. He was fixing a tire on the side of the road in the middle of the night or whatever, or it was about nighttime. And then he was taken to a warehouse, and then because he owed these guys money, taken to a warehouse and was beaten up and tied to a chair, all that shit, like something out of a fucking horror film. They let him go because, again, my dad's a talker. They let him go. He was able to talk himself out of it. I don't know how he survived that, but he ended up in the hospital, and I was at a softball tournament in Virginia. So I got a call about it. I had to rush home. Your dad's in the hospital. He was like dying. And then, I saw him like that. I think I was 14 at the time, 14 or 16. I don't remember. And yeah, so I remember seeing him in the hospital bed like that, and I don't know if the boys saw him. I don't know if they saw him, but I did. And it was hard to see. Again, it's hard to see anybody like that, but particularly one of your parents. It's a very scary thing to see somebody, your father like that. And he was on a morphine drip, but he's like, I'm never gonna touch this shit again, But then a week later, he got high. So just, there's so much stuff that went on, a lot of arguing from it, a lot of but I know I mentioned this in another video, I can always tell when he was, on drugs, because his eyes would bug out, and I've seen other people on drugs, and I've never seen that before, so we knew when he was in another state, because his eyes, he was a completely different person, he looked completely different, and it was just freaky. And then he would like lay on the couch and be like, Raquel, is there something down the hallway, is there something in the hallway? So again, we were very young, and it went on all throughout our lives. So this is what we had to listen to. But if there's something down in the hallway, go check to see if there's something down there. Just fucking bugging out. And then what else would he would say? Oh, I'm going to see, like when he would leave the house. Oh, I'm going to see a man about a dog. He would say stuff like that. So that we knew that was his tell. After a certain point, like initially we're like, oh, we're getting a dog, but then we realized there's no dog coming home. He's not going to see a dog. He's going to do drugs. And then it got worse. It would just get worse. So it was like that for a while, and it was a very secretive thing, and I knew about it in kindergarten. Like I was already coming to that awareness in kindergarten around Shane's age, or not even kindergarten, preschool. And I remember my mom whispering in my ear, don't tell anybody that your dad is a drug addict. I remember her saying that, and it was more, if you tell anyone, I'll kill you. It was that type of whisper. So then I had to hide it, and then I was hiding it, and then I remember being in like 7th grade, and I was like, I'm not hiding this anymore. So I started talking about that. I started talking about it with my friends, because that was the time we were in middle school and people are dabbling in alcohol and marijuana and stuff, and that was the time for me to start speaking about that stuff. I was like, I'm not touching this stuff. Get away from me with that. I'm not doing this. So I would preach to my friends, but I was giving them a heads up, like, this is what your life can turn into. This is what it's gonna end up looking like. I was a poster. My family's a poster. We're the poster children for that stuff. Again, I didn't do this stuff, but it was basically like I was. It was around me every goddamn day. I'm getting tired talking about it now, to be quite honest with you. I don't even know what I said. But yeah, my dad's still suffering from that to this day, and I know he's on a lot of pills, a lot of medications for God knows what, but still taking those drugs heavily, and he's probably still doing heroin too, to be quite honest with you. The stuff never goes away, especially because he doesn't get help for it. He doesn't help himself with that. He's been in and out of rehab too. I've visited him a few times in rehab. I've gone to a few meetings and stuff with my brothers and with the one brother, and then my dad. And he would speak, and he was good at talking. And when he was sober, he was great. No, I don't hate my dad. I don't hate my mom either. But shit it impacted us significantly, especially the boys. Me too. You know, I realized not even with the drug addiction, just over time, just all right. I have mommy issues. I have daddy issues. I have to fix all this shit for myself. How am I gonna do that? I can't talk to my mom about anything. I can't talk to my dad about anything. I never could, and because if I did, it would just trigger them, or if I was doing better. My mom would be upset about it, and just, I don't think intentionally, but because she wasn't doing it for herself. And why are you able to do it and I can't do it? Well, because I put a lot of work in. That's why I did the fucking work. That's why. So I don't hate my parents, but it's just the fact that it's still going on today. So I've said this before about after, what's your excuse now, Mom? Why are you still with Dad? Because Steve's dead now. Everybody's been out of the house. So what's your excuse now? Oh, the boys need to be with their father. The boys need to be with their father. What's your excuse now? So every day she's there, still doing the same stuff, and she talks about leaving and all that stuff, but she has yet to do that. And I'm not saying she's not going to, but they have been doing this song and dance for a very long time, for decades. So I'm 34. They've been doing it for 35 years. Nothing has changed. Hopefully it does, for their sake. The kids are okay. So as long as my brothers are all right, I'm fine. It's really all that matters, I guess. But so I'm trying to lead by example, even for them. Hopefully they're learning from me. Hopefully they watch my videos. If they do, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I know a lot of it's going to be triggering them, which is understandable. I get that. But it's just the reality of it. You've got to sit and face your shit. So just the way it is. So don't turn to drugs. You're turning to drugs. You're running from. It's not a cool thing to do. There's nothing cool about doing drugs. You know what's cool? Facing your demons. That's cool. Yeah. So I'll speak more about this going forward, but I'm getting tired. Shane's scratching out the door like a dog, and I don't want her listening to this stuff. But I'll speak about this more going forward. But yes, say no to drugs, everybody. Say no to drugs and be mindful of what you're doing now. If you're having a drink every night, you're having a few drinks every night, every weekend, something you need to do, you don't need to do it. So be aware of that. Come to that awareness, because it's just going to cause more problems for yourself and your families, and it's going to have an effect on your families. But yeah, all right. I'm tired of talking about this. I will discuss this at a later date again. I'm going to go back and review the video, see what I said. I know I paused a lot, and because I'm just thinking about this stuff. But I'll also say this too. I want people whose parents have suffered from drug addiction, and people that witnessed that stuff growing up, and even people who weren't around it but were aware that their parents were drug addicts and not in their lives and stuff. I want you guys to understand that they're not battling their own stuff, but they have their own stuff that they're running from, and it has nothing to do with you. It doesn't make you less worthy. They didn't mean to neglect you. They didn't mean to abandon you. They didn't mean to make you feel like you were unworthy. They didn't mean to do any of that stuff. They didn't mean to make you feel unloved. They are just so trapped and wrapped up in the drug addiction that it's hard for them to get out of that space, and unless they do the necessary detoxing and inner work to get out of that, they're going to continue doing what they're doing. They're going to keep running from their shit. And people they're running from their shit when they're hooked up on these drugs and stuff. That's all it is. They're running from their stuff, and they didn't receive the love when they were younger. Maybe they didn't receive the love when they were younger. And you know, unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. But I want you guys to not, as hard as it is, especially when you're a kid, don't take it personally. They're dealing with their own stuff, or not dealing with their own stuff, and that's why they're absent. And you know, I would say stuff like, well, why is he picking the drugs over us? Da, da, da. And that's when I was a lot younger, and it's just it had nothing to do with us, and that's just the way. That's what it comes down to. It had absolutely nothing to do with us whatsoever, and you just have to come to that realization. Your parents are human. Everybody's human, and everybody has their faults, and that's something that they need to dig out. They need to come out of that hole themselves. They need to dig themselves out of that hole themselves. There's nothing you could do about it. You can love them from afar, and just don't follow in their footsteps. And but you know what feels good. You know what doesn't. You know if you're hearing about this stuff in your family, like, oh, they're a drug addict, da, da, da. They need love too. I'm not saying they don't, but that love's gonna come from inside. So that it has to come from there first and foremost. But I don't want people thinking, oh, like they used to think, because it was a secret for a big time for us, until I was like, I'm fucking done talking about this. But then it was like, it still was like, not a secret, but people were aware of it, especially like in middle school and high school for me. My friends were anyway, my friends' parents and stuff. But they still didn't understand like what I was dealing with, what my brothers were dealing with on a daily basis. And until you're involved in it and yourself, you really don't understand. But it's just, I don't hate my parents. Like for a long time I resented them. Like how could anybody, especially after having my own kid, how could anybody put their kid in this situation? How could you do that? But again, just the way it is sometimes. It's life. And you just have to work with what's thrown at you, and don't take it on. Do better. Always do better. I hope Shane does better than I do. And yeah, just keep learning, keep growing, but stay away from this stuff. You don't need to dabble in it. You don't need to play around with any of this stuff. Alcohol, marijuana, you don't need to touch it. You can get high off of life, for real. So go learn how to do that, and you'll be even happier. And you won't have a hangover either. So that's another thing. I can't deal with hangovers. They're frustrating. But yeah. All right, I'm done talking. I will speak about this again at a later date, and I'll put something more organized together. But just a few of the stories, some of the stuff that I experienced. Yeah, the craziness. But anyway, take it easy. God bless.